It's not that you lack the physical ability to do that. You just don't give yourself permission to do it in certain scenarios.
In this video, we're going to talk about the distinction between confidence and self-esteem. And let me tell you, this is the single most mind-blowing, foundational, and most common breakthrough for our clients. It's going to be critical for you as a coach to help your clients achieve their goals, because most people put the target in the wrong place and therefore they sabotage themselves from achieving the things that they want. And then for your journey as a coach building a business, this is going to be so critical for you. Most people have these two concepts connected together and misunderstood, but it also spills over into their messaging and their marketing. And that's one of the absolute biggest reasons why so many coaches fail. So watch this video to avoid that mistake.
We're going to talk about self-esteem and confidence. And it's really critical that you understand the difference here. And as I say things, if it lands for you, if it's a big breakthrough or a realization, then please type it in the comments. This conversation is so critical because we as society get it wrong. The reason we as society get it wrong is because we think self-esteem and confidence are the same thing, or we lump them together too often. And if we don't think they're the same thing, usually we're focused on the wrong thing. And I say this coming to you from over 15 years in the personal development coaching space. Not just personal development like goal setting, and there's nothing wrong with that, but what I've been doing over the last 15 years is essentially diving in and not just identifying what needs to happen, but help people make it happen. So I'm a coach. I like to dive in and go, oh, you need more belief in yourself? How do we do that? You need to raise your confidence? All right, how do we do that? So I like to roll up my sleeves and get people on the table and dive in and actually learn how to do the work that most of us know we need to do. I think that's one of the missing elements in a lot of personal development, is there's just a lot of general ideas of what needs to happen, but a lot of us don't understand how to actually do that. Well, I'm like a geek when it comes to understanding and solving problems. I was a math teacher for a while. I was like always into mathematics and science. And so now I kind of bring that mathematical scientific approach to personal development. So, okay, this is what we need to do. How do we do it? So I'm coming to you as a reporter of over 15 years of experience as a coach, helping people dive into self-esteem and confidence. And the majority of my clients over the years have been women. So for those of you who are female, I've got a little bit of something that's unique to the female journey. I'll tell you a little bit more later after this. So first of all, let's talk about the difference between self-esteem and confidence. This is really critical to understand, because if you don't have the target placed in the right area of your life, then you can't solve it. Even if you find the right solutions to the wrong target, then your life can't change because the target is wrong. Or if you identify the right target but can't find the solutions, then your life really can't change. So I want to help you find the right target and find the right solutions. And I'll also tell you what the right target is for almost all of you. The difference between self-esteem and confidence is what we need to start with. Confidence is what most people think they're looking for, and they're not. And we usually put these things together as though they are one and the same. But it's not. They are not the same thing, and they're so critically different that we need to separate them in the conversation so we know what we actually need in our life. Confidence is the value that you see in your skills. And I'm wording this extremely intentionally. Confidence is the value that you see in your skills. How valuable you think your skills are. Esteem is the value that you see in yourself. How valuable you think yourself is. Essentially, confidence is focused on doing. Esteem is focused on being. Now, most people think they have a low confidence problem. People just say, if I had more confidence, then I would jump on a video. If I had more confidence, that I would speak my mind more. If I had more confidence, that I would set boundaries. If I had more confidence, no. Those are not confidence problems. There is virtually nothing I'm going to make a bold statement, and I welcome any of you to call me on it if it's not true for you. I don't know that I've ever heard it not be true. Most people have goals that require certain actions that you actually have the confidence in. If you're afraid of public speaking, let's say, and you think you need to raise your confidence in your public speaking, no, you don't. You have the ability to stand in a place and open your mouth and make sounds. It's not that you lack the physical ability to do that. You just don't give yourself permission to do it in certain scenarios. Because if you're afraid of public speaking, but then you go home and you talk to your family like there's no problem, well then you have the actual skill. You don't need confidence in your skill. You need permission in yourself. And I'm going to break this down more. If you're afraid of making phone calls, let's say you're in business and you're afraid of making follow-up phone calls, or you're afraid of selling, you're afraid of doing webinars, you're afraid of some kind of action that's going to bring clients or prospects into your funnels and money into your business, you don't lack the skills and you don't lack the confidence in those skills. You just lack the permission in certain scenarios. And if you think about it, almost all of us only need the skill to communicate in order to do just about everything that we want to do, especially when it comes to building a business and building relationships. Most of what we need is simply the ability to communicate. The ability to communicate in the written word, the ability to communicate in the verbal word, the ability to communicate visually, the ability to communicate in intimate situations, the ability to communicate inside conflict, the ability to share what's on your heart, the ability to speak what's on your mind. It's really communication if we break it down for the most part. Now, there are some endeavors, there are some skills, some goals rather, that require physical skills. If you want to get really good at basketball, you've got to take shots. And the only way to give this body confidence is to put up shots. If you want to get really good at playing the guitar, you've got to strum the strings. You've got to put your time in. So there are developmental skills that need to be practiced. Absolutely. And even with those, most of the time, we don't have a confidence problem. We still have a self-esteem problem. So if we take a look at self-esteem versus confidence, self-esteem is being, confidence is doing. Self-esteem is how I think about myself. Confidence is how I think about my skills. If we can separate these two, which by the way is one of the most critical things we have to do in personal development, because when these are connected, when we think we can increase our self-esteem by increasing our performance, that's a huge, huge problem. And almost everybody has been programmed with that false belief. The way to increase the value of my person is by increasing the value of my performance. That has only worked never. Many of you will resonate with that. Maybe you've been on this path of constantly proving yourself through your performance. Maybe you were trying to get acknowledgement from your dad. Maybe you were trying to get respect from your mom. Maybe you were trying to get something from your friends or from your siblings. If you're trying to get the feeling of fulfillment and enoughness through your performance and accomplishments, it will only work never. Why? Because that's not what actually creates the feeling of self-worth. It might give us a false idea of self-worth if we can increase our performance and increase our achievements, but we will never achieve our way into happiness. We will never perform our way into the feeling of being enough. That's why when we chase all these tangible things and we think we're going to be happy when we get there, invariably we are disappointed. Now, it's nobody's fault. This is what society teaches us. This is what the media teaches us. We learn this at a very, very young age. We get trained that by celebration and acknowledgement that we deserve celebration and acknowledgement when we're performing well, which means if we're not performing well, then we don't deserve celebration and acknowledgement, which puts too much performance pressure on us. Meaning, if I perform well, I get to feel good. But the opposite must be true. If I don't perform well, then I don't get to feel good. That right there is the problem. Because if you have a belief that you need to perform well in order to feel good about yourself, then your self-esteem is at risk every time you take action. If your self-esteem is at risk every time you take action, then you've got to be perfect. You got to guarantee that you're going to win because you don't want to lose any more of your self-esteem. And that kind of pressure is why most people are procrastinators. It's why most people are perfectionists, or at least the people who are perfectionists, that's why. Is because there's too much pressure on winning. And so the brain creates this sabotage mechanism that says, if I can wait a while until I'm ready to take action so that I can guarantee that the action will win because I want to increase my self-esteem or I really don't want to lose my self-esteem by failing, that is the problem. That increased pressure is what causes most of us to be miserable. And it increases the likelihood that we won't perform. Because contrary to what a lot of people think, increased pressure does not lead to increased performance. Increased pressure leads to increased procrastination. Increased pressure leads to increased perfectionism. And increased pressure leads to increased misery. Either you'll be miserable by not taking action, or you might be miserable by taking action and winning and still not feeling better about yourself. So we need to separate who we are as people from who we are as performers. And then, once we can protect our self-esteem, our value, then we will give ourselves permission to take action. Because if we don't perform perfectly, our self-esteem won't go down. See, we need to know that our self-esteem is finite. Our self-esteem is what it is because we are that we are. We are, period. We live. We exist. I am, period. That makes me valuable. That makes you valuable. Your increased performance does not increase your value as a person. Your decreased performance does not decrease your value as a person. When we can protect our value from as a person from our value as a performer, now we have permission to try. Now we have permission to get on camera and do videos because our self-esteem is not at risk if people don't like it. Now we have permission to publish that book because our self-esteem is not at risk if people don't like it. Now we have permission to set our boundaries because our self-esteem is not at risk if people don't like it. Think of that phrase. I don't think I've ever used that phrase that way. Our self-esteem is not at risk if people don't like it. But what most of us are doing because of this pattern is we want to make sure people will like it before we even create it. So we are demanding that we have a guaranteed pre-approval. Like we are demanding that our message is pre-approved before the message is me approved. Meaning you haven't even approved of yourself. And if you haven't approved of yourself, then it doesn't matter how much pre-approval or external approval you get from other people. Your me approval is more important. So this separation between self-esteem and self-confidence, between being and doing, is everything. Now, let's talk about increasing both of them. And these are actually pretty simple discussions. The only way to increase confidence is to practice. That's it. That's the only way. Because confidence is the certainty that you have in your skills. The only way you can build certainty in your skills is to practice the skills. Practice the guitar. Practice playing the piano. Practice speaking in front of people. Practice doing your videos. Practice writing something and sharing it. The only way to increase confidence in your skills is to practice the skills. It's the only way. Most people are wanting to practice the skills in their head and then create certainty in their mind before they actually take the action. And you guys, our head is where all of our problems are. That's the last place you want to be trapped and try to build certainty in anything, is in the self-abuse room. we have to practice. But the reason most people don't practice, especially with the things that are most important to you, the things that are tied to your purpose, the things that are tied to your passion, the reason is because we don't trust ourselves with our failure. We don't trust ourselves with our failure. Because once upon a time, tell me if this is landing for you, once upon a time, we failed and we went in on ourselves. Once upon a time, we failed and we still probably haven't forgiven ourselves for that failure. So if you haven't forgiven yourself for the failure from last year, for the failure from 2000, for the failure from 35 years ago, if you still haven't forgiven yourself for the failure from back then, why would you have permission to try going forward? Because there's a little piece of you, and that little piece of you is your inner child that says, I don't trust what you're going to say if I try and I don't make it. I don't trust what you're going to do to me if I give my all and I still fail. I don't trust you. And the I is our little child inside, and the you is the judge, the jury, and the prosecutioner that we have become as adults. Tell me if this is landing. My experience is when it comes to self-esteem, we only have one thing to focus on. That is our relationship to and I'm going to put this in air quotes, the failure. Our relationship to the failure. Now, when I say failure, I'm talking about two things. I'm talking about the failure of the attempt and or the failure being the person who failed. We need to let that piece go. We need to stop pretending that if I fail, I'm a failure. And we need to stop pretending that missed expectations even count as failure. So when you can heal your relationship to yourself, and when yourself knows that even if he or she fails in her attempts, you're not going to beat her up. You're not going to beat him up. That's the whole game, you guys. The whole game when it comes to self-esteem as it relates to personal development and achievement and making money and abundance and all the things that we want, the whole game is, do you trust you with you? That's it. Do you trust you with you? Do I trust me with me? Do I trust me with my failure? Do I trust me with my attempts? Do I trust me with my authenticity? Do I trust me with my imperfections? Do I trust me in the presence of other people being me? So you might think that you're afraid of what other people say about your videos. You are not. You're only afraid of what you say to yourself after people say what they say about your videos. And think about this. If you have an issue with this, if this is really landing with you, then nothing anybody can say is probably safe for you. Because if they say, hey, you know what? You might want to do this with your hair, and I don't think I really like what you're saying, and here's what I think, and here's why I think you're wrong. You might take that and use it as punishment against yourself. But they might say, oh my goodness, you are amazing and I want to hear more from you. And your filter just might say, oh yeah, whatever, if they only knew the truth. So most of us could use any feedback out there as a way to abuse ourselves, as a way to dismiss what they're saying and just listen to what we're saying. So the beautiful thing about that is we just need to change our relationship to ourselves, because then when people say, you are amazing and I want to hear more from you, you'll be like, of course, who wouldn't want to hear more from me? But then when they say, you are horrible and I wish you would shut up and you should never write anything and please don't ever do another video, even if somebody literally said that to you, your conversation with yourself would drown out theirs. So I want this to be simple for you. The only thing that matters in this conversation of self-esteem is how you treat you. The only thing that matters is what you say to yourself when you get off of the stage, what you say to yourself when you get out of a relationship, what you say to yourself when other people give their mostly ignorant opinions of you. The only thing that matters is what you say to yourself. The beautiful thing about that is now we have one thing to focus on, and there's really only one person that needs to be invited. You don't need to wait for anybody else to come on in and help you free yourself. You don't need to make sure that other people that you have issues with or that you haven't forgiven yet are available for this conversation. You don't need anybody else except you and you. So if you knew that no matter how you performed, you would have your back, you would protect you. If you knew that no matter what happened on that stage, no matter what happened on that video, no matter what happens in that next relationship, if you knew that regardless of my performance, I will protect my dignity, I will protect my integrity by not beating myself up, if you knew that, then there would be no reason to resist. If we can remove the risk of self-abuse, we will remove the risk of performance. It's only everything. It's only everything. It's only everything. So to increase your confidence, you really just need practice to increase. Actually, it's not increasing your self-esteem. Your self-esteem has always been exactly what it is. Remember, it cannot increase, it cannot decrease. It's always been exactly what it is. So it's not about increasing our self-esteem. It's just about pulling the blankets off that we've had on top of it. So it's really about just revealing the self-esteem that's already there. Every single one of you has the same amount of self-esteem that you had when you were 1, when you were 2, when you lived life carelessly and carefree and you just had all the confidence to try everything in the world. That same amount of self-esteem is still inside you. It just is probably covered up with all of this societal programming, with all of the memories, all the beliefs. So it's not about increasing your self-esteem. Confidence can increase with practice. Self-esteem only gets revealed with compassion. That's really what it is. Compassion with self. Compassion from self for self. And if you become a cheerleader for yourself and more of an encourager and more of an empowerment voice rather than a discourager, life completely changes.
I'm telling you, this is going to be a breakthrough concept. If you like this video, check out that video right there where I teach you how to increase your confidence, not self-esteem, as a coach. Doing the right things and getting the right results, but they've convinced themselves that they're doing it wrong.